if you could change one thing about the relationship with your mom growing up, what would it be? And if you could change one thing about your relationship with your dad growing up, what would it be? And I include myself in the group because we're all in this together. And so, for example, I might start by saying, well, I wish my mom had been more present. I wish my dad did not have such a bad temper. So people can answer as little or nothing if they don't feel like it, or more, as much as feels reasonable to the person. So this whole workshop is about awareness. So if you write that answer down for yourself, you'll see how that plays in a little bit later. So after I do that piece, then I go to the big picture. And when I go to the big picture, I'm talking about the issues of survival and the issues of fight or flight. So what I'd like to do now is I'd like to have, could I have 2 volunteers? 2 brave souls? Okay, come up here. And another one? Okay, great. So what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to stand by the board, and I'd like you to stand over here. And so when I tell you, I want you, so you're going to be A, and you're going to be B. And when I tell you A, I want you to walk slowly toward your partner. I want you to walk slowly toward your partner. And B, when you notice in your body when you want your partner to stop, I just want you to hold up your hand, no talking, okay? And then I'm going to tell you something. She. Okay. So, let me go this way.
Am I A or B?
Okay, you're going to start.
I'm going to start.
You're going to start. Okay. When you walk to her,
Okay. All right.
I'm gonna hold up the hand.
You're gonna hold up your hand. I'm sorry. You're gonna hold up your hand. You walk slowly toward her. Ready? Begin. Okay. And back up. And shake it out. Okay. So what did you notice?
And she kept walking, and it got really uncomfortable.
Right. Did you notice her body? Okay. So let's think of how that works with a kid. What happened at school today? How much are you paying attention to what I'm saying? Not at all, right? So I think that's a really important piece. In a workshop, I'll have 2 lines, and we'll switch, and we'll process exactly what happened. What happened in your body when she took the extra step?
It was so very tensed up, and I closed up just my core.
Okay. So thank you. So then I do another exercise with the whole room, and I need 2 more volunteers. Can I have 2 more volunteers? Okay. So this time, what I'd like you to do is stand about 4 feet away from your partner. See if I can keep my A's and B's straight this time. Okay, so you're going to be A, and you're going to be B. So A, what I want you to do is just gently begin to move any way you feel like it, no talking. And I want you to imitate her movements, and then I'll give you more instruction. So A, gently begin to bring the movement to a close. Look in your partner's eyes. Put your hand on your own heart. Reach your hand out to your partner's heart. Drop your hand, turn around, walk away. Thank you. And what was that like for you?
Felt like she was giving me something,
Uh-huh.
like energy,
Uh-huh.
good, positive energy.
Uh-huh. And you were looking like you were having fun playing.
Yes.
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 And then when she walked away, what happened?
Why is she walking away?
So a question
Abruptly,
came,
yeah.
it was abrupt and a question came into your mind. Now obviously I'm telling you to do this, but it's interesting what happens even as I'm choosing people who don't know each other. Sometimes in a workshop people will know each other, partners come together. But it's interesting to see what happens. And again, these exercises are designed for awareness. Sometimes somebody likes it when somebody walks away. Sometimes when the two lines are coming together, you can't get close enough. They want to hug. So again, it's not about what you're supposed to do, it's about what happens for you. Okay, thank you. So the next thing that I do is I draw a line down the middle of the room. And I say, if you had a stronger reaction to the first exercise, stand against that side of the room. If you had a stronger reaction to the second exercise, stand against that side of the room. And if you had an equally strong reaction, stand in the middle of the room where the line is. And people find their spot in the room, and then they look around the room. And they see how differently people experience the issue of how close, how far. And it's very surprising a lot of the time, especially with partners. Okay. So then, after that, I shift gears and I move to the big picture. And I talk about how the underlying fear of too close, too much focus, too much attention is the fear of being inundated or taken over. And how on the other side, the fear of not enough closeness, not enough contact, has to do with the fear of being abandoned. And how when those fears become aroused, then that's when people get dysregulated. And to think, I like to call dysregulation fragmentation, because kids and parents really can relate to that word, because that's how you feel, like you're in pieces, like you're not, like it's always and never, and all of those kinds of things. So then what I do after talking about this is go to the issue that you wrote down in the morning. Like, what do you wish could be different with your parents? And then I have you take out the parenting journal. So would you all do that? That was one of the handouts. All right. Is that better? Yeah. Okay. So what I want you to do with the parenting journal is to think of an incident that happened with your kid or a client or a patient or your partner or a coworker. And I just want you to write down the incident like a description. No judgment, just like a camera or a tape recorder. Like, instead of when my kid was a slob, it would be when he walked in the house and threw his books on the couch and left his shoes in the middle of the floor, etc. Okay. And then the second piece has to do with tracking your arousal. How high was your charge on a scale of 1 to 10? And then the third piece is going to be tracking the theme or meaning. And this is a really important piece because tender spots have a meaning. It would be like, okay, if my tender spot is my parents didn't listen to my feelings, then when my kid doesn't listen to my feelings, it pokes that tender spot. My arousal shoots up, and now I'm relating to my kid through the tender spot rather than being in the present moment dealing with my kid. If a 2-year-old doesn't listen to me, that's sort of normal, isn't it? Okay. And if my 2-year-old doesn't listen to me and I go, "Why aren't you listening?" then I'm bringing the full force of my history into that moment. And again, just like that walking toward exercise, that's going to be real intense, and I'm going to get a fear response as opposed to being able to help that child with being able to listen. So the other part of that would be, if my parents didn't listen to my feelings, what meaning did I make out of that? Because really the point of all of this is we want to be able to live meaningful and sustainable lives. And so, you know, if the meaning I made out of my parents didn't listen to me, maybe the meaning I made out of was I didn't feel worth listening to. So maybe I thought I didn't have any value. So the theme and the meaning are my vulnerabilities that are going to get triggered by my kids or other significant relationships. And it helps to begin to know your themes, because then you can be able to keep those themes in mind. I had an experience where my son was in the sixth grade, he was the narrator of the winter performance, and I was really excited. And I had joint custody by then, and we were friends. We actually co-authored the book that's here together in '94 after we were divorced. And so after the performance, we were all sort of on the steps. And you know those times where everyone leaves really quick? Oh, hey, great, fun to be here, time to go, see you later. And it was his turn to go with his dad. And I was standing on the steps by myself, like, so quickly, and I could feel that feeling of falling from my heart to my feet. And I knew the theme. The theme was, I don't have any value. How come everybody left me? If I didn't know that theme, I could have gone off on my ex, who we were actually doing something really well together. And it helped me to know what that theme was. And it helped me then to use the grounding exercises. You know, there were some wonderful things about grounding yesterday. And so I'm going to give you a simple form in a few minutes. So what I'd like you to do, if you've had a chance to write that down and do the journal page, I'm going to give you another minute or so. And then maybe have a couple people volunteer. And let's see if we can help track what was going on. Yes?
Would you mind repeating the three?
The three is the incident. The second is if there's a theme that you're aware of. And the third is, the second is how high the charge. And the third is the theme or the meaning. Sorry.
Thank you.
I think I'm a little bit hyper aroused. So, if you are struggling with finding what that is, then take a look at what you wrote about your mom and your dad and see if you can find it there. Yes?
Hi, I came in a little late. Can you explain what you said to write down about the parents?
About the parents, if there would be one thing you could change about your relationship with your mom growing up, what would it be? And if there was one thing you could change about your relationship with your dad growing up, what would that be? Yes?
So the incident was that it was time for my 9-year-old son to do his homework. And he was slouching, not sitting up in the chair. He wasn't attending to the work. He was yawning a lot. And I won't tell you what I did next. But I was at about, it was weird. It felt like an 8 inside, but through enough work, it didn't look like an 8.
Right.
What it looked like was, oh, you're tired, go, why don't you lay down for a while? And I just had to take myself out of the room because I knew I was at an 8.
Okay. So that's really good tracking. Can you connect it to what you wrote down about your mom and your dad?
So it's interesting because at first when I thought about Andre, I wrote it all about him. I said, like, he's not good enough. This is what, this is the belief or the thing. He's not good enough. He's not okay. It's not safe for him to be this way. He has to work harder and not be the way that he is. And then I realized that you were talking about really more what our like what our injury or theme was, and it was exactly the same. I'm not good enough.
Uh-huh.
I'm helpless to make things better as a parent or just in general.
Right.
And we're stuck. I'm stuck. He's stuck. There's no way out. And at first I was like, that doesn't relate to my themes. But then because I always think about my mom. But my dad, I wrote down, I wish he'd been more human and vulnerable, and that you didn't need me to be so perfect or contained.
And there it is. So you don't have to do a whole history. You can just take those emergent themes and begin to reflect, and that'll help you. Because you're talking about a lot of things. You're talking about the multi-generational transmission process. You're talking about how inside you're at an 8, but you were really working at, containing yourself. And sometimes that you can calm yourself down enough, and sometimes a kid feels the difference between your words and your affect. So it would be like if you are saying, I love you, or just brushing a child's hair and being present when you do it. So the next piece then would be to work on grounding. When you recognize that you are hyper-aroused or hypo-aroused, okay? And we could talk about how everybody's nervous system is different, how when we're under conditions of threat, that some people's nervous system, think about safety first. It's kind of like driving a car a bit. A little gas, a little brake, a little gas, a little brake. It's kind of an elegant balance. And so when there's threat and we become dysregulated or fragmented, then what happens is either the brake goes on fast, and let's think about the symptoms that go on with a gas pedal. Okay, anyone? What happens when your gas pedal goes on fast in your body? If you're going fast. If you're going fast, think about your heart pounding. Think about the blood rushes to your head, your face. Okay, muscles are tensing. Right. Okay, and what about if the brake goes on? Then a shutdown. People feel cold. Their peripheral vision narrows. All kinds of things. And what I do in a workshop is take from the audience their experiences of what their own physiology does. Because sometimes it alternates. Gas, brake, gas, brake. Sometimes the gas and brake go on at the same time. And it's really good to pay attention to your own nervous system and your own physiology, because that's another way in to knowing that it's really important to ground yourself so you can be back in the present and attend to what's going on with your kid. And so sometimes you'll notice through the theme and meaning. Sometimes you'll notice through your physiology. And so there's lots of windows and ways to recognize you're coming from a legacy of tender spots instead of being in the moment with your kid. Any questions? Okay. So then the next piece is grounding. And I kind of do a simple thing of grounding in a workshop, which is I say, once you kind of recognize your physiology or theme or meaning, it's sort of good to say, oh, it's kind of like a voice in the distance because you're not really present. It's kind of like, oh, I must be fragmented. Okay? I must be fragmented. This won't last. It's a state of mind. It won't last. And doing that can really help you begin to do the grounding, because a lot of times people don't recognize they need to do that. And this step is really important if you're going to say, okay, so the next thing is feel my feet. Put my feet on the ground, feel the ground support me, how it receives me and support me. Breathe, take nice deep breaths into my belly. And the other thing, and this is very helpful for people who tend to shut down, is to look at objects and their colors, like maybe 10 in a row, like black pants, brown boots, green shirt, kitty shirt, orange shirt, And as I do that, because I'm using my senses, any of my senses will tend to bring me back. If I wash my hands, if I've been into an orange. But usually we can do all three of these things in the supermarket line when we're checking out. You can feel your feet, you can take some breaths, and you can look at bright colors, and it will help you be able to address, I want that candy, I want, all that stuff that goes on. Okay. So now that we're grounded and present, let's think about development. Okay. So you have a sheet that says Parenting Process Guidelines. So the first guideline is about bonding, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this because I think that is the piece that is more, it's more instinctive. My baby's in distress. I feel it in my body. I want to do something, so the baby is not in distress anymore. The baby calms down, I calm down. Okay? Then, if we want to look at the exercises that happened that we did earlier, okay, that helps us understand the issue of bonding, about being in contact and not being on top of somebody and not being too far away. And so as we play with that sweet spot, how to find that sweet spot, and by noticing our own bodies and the self-empathy that we have felt by doing the Tender Spot Journal, then we begin to imagine how it must feel to that kid and paying attention to their body language. Is their chest tight? Do they have a tight smile? Is their body relaxed? What's going on? So that's another way to really think about bonding. Okay. So the second theme is called mirroring. And this is really important because we've been studying ourselves for, let's say 100 or so years in terms of sharing information about parenting, kind of like what you were talking about, Ruth, about advancing development, how everybody's traumatized. So if I think about mirroring is about really giving a kid an emotional reflection. It's a heart skill. When you're first learning it, sometimes it seems like a head skill, and it just seems kind of like, this isn't working. But as you really think about putting yourself in your child's emotional shoes, keeping one foot in yourself and one foot in their shoes, to imagine what it's like to be them as they are sharing their experience with you. And so the next part of this is to look at what I call the mirroring injuries. So I'm going to ask you to play with me some more. Would somebody be willing to be a kid and tell me something you're excited about or upset about? Anybody?
Upset about traffic.
Traffic? Oh my God, the traffic is horrible, isn't it? Oh my God, I can't believe traffic. Are you scared of the traffic? What's happening to her? What did you notice in your body?
I felt overwhelmed.
Uh-huh. Did you want to talk to me?
What?
Did you want to talk to me? No. Okay. So if I'm going to mirror accurately, there's two parts. One part is to match her affect, to stay in her affective range. With that means intensity, and with teenagers I might be just under. Okay. And the other is to try to name the feeling, because I think it's important for kids to be able to know what they're feeling, have those feelings associated to their body experience, but be able to talk about their feelings. So If I do this accurately, tell me again.
Traffic upsets me.
Traffic does, it upsets you. Yeah, makes you worried?
Just anxious.
Just anxious, yeah, yeah. What happened this time?
That was nice, and I wanted to engage in the conversation.
Uh-huh, she wanted to talk to me more. Okay, and her body stayed relaxed. Okay, so over, you can see over is just that, it's over, it's overwhelming, it's too much. Let's look at under. Someone else want to be a kid and tell me something they're excited or upset about? Disneyland, okay. Tell me about Disneyland.
It's fun, it's exciting, you're around people, you get on rides, you eat good food, junk food, sugar.
Oh, that's nice, that's nice, that's nice. What's happening?
I'm not liking it.
Okay, all right. So if I were going to do that accurately, we'd be probably closer together. Okay, so tell me again.
Disneyland, it's fun, it's exciting, you get to meet people, you get on rides.
You sound really excited. Yeah. You like Disneyland.
Love it.
Love it. Love it. Okay, what happened that time?
It was warm and welcoming, and I felt that you felt what I felt. I saw your smile, and it made me want to tell you more.
Okay, so you know how if you ask a kid, how are you feeling? Oh, I don't know. Okay, but they can see themselves in a reflection. And you make a guess. Sounds like, seems like, and if you're wrong, it's okay. If I say, you sound really angry, I'm not angry, I'm frustrated. So, you know, you can't really go wrong with taking a chance at taking a guess, all right? So let's look at distorted. Somebody else want to be a kid and tell me something they're excited or upset about?
Oh, I got new shoes.
What's that on your shirt? Did you do your homework? Did you clean up your room? Okay. That's distorted, Mary. Can you see yourself in that reflection? Mm-hmm. Okay. So that happens a lot, I think, because parents get preoccupied with being what's in their head, and they're not really listening and attending to what's being said. Okay. So tell me again.
I got new shoes.
Oh wow, you sound happy.
I am. Yeah. So excited. I love these shoes.
You love them.
Yes.
Ah. Okay, and what happened that time?
I felt happy.
You felt happy.
Happy for me.
And you'll see a kid, you'll see their body relax. If they've been tense, you'll hear them take a breath. That's where tracking the physiology can be really helpful. And you'll see if they're still really tense, probably they don't feel gotten. So let's talk about attunement. Attunement is a process. Attunement is something we do together. Attunement means that I'm really listening to you from my heart, and you get that I get you. And that's attunement. If you don't get that I don't get you, let me say that again. If you don't get that I get you, we're still misattuned.
Can you say those two things again?
Yes.
I'm listening.
Okay. Attunement is a process. So it takes place between us. I can't just attune to you. It's something we're doing together. So if I mirror you and you get that I get you, we are attuned. If you don't get that I get you, we're still misattuned. So we're talking about developmental injuries, they're little, bit by bit by bit by bit. Okay. So let's see. I didn't put this one up. This is a really good one. Okay, so I won't do anxious, it's just sort of what it sounds like. Why don't I go to critical? Someone else want to be a kid and tell me something?
I got benched today.
Benched? Of course you got benched. You're always bad. You're always acting out. You get in so much trouble, I can't even believe it. Look at her face. So that didn't really help, did it? No. Let's try again.
I got benched today.
You look kind of sad. Yeah. Yeah. Didn't feel very good to get benched. Feeling pretty bad. Not fair. Didn't feel fair at all. So now I'm going to leave her be because she doesn't want to tell me more than that. Did you feel like I got what was going on with you? Okay. So notice I stayed in her affective range and I got what she was feeling. Did I get what you were feeling? Okay. And you know, I might check with the kid. If they're telling me something and I see them all, you know, not shifting states, I might say, you know, I feel like I'm really wanting to kind of get what that was like for you this morning, and I kind of took a guess, but that doesn't quite feel right. And so you can explore that with a kid. You don't have to just walk away if they're still dysregulated. Okay. Let's do discounting next. Yes.
Could you ask a question?
You know, I think you can ask a question, and notice that I'm not adding anything of my own. I'm the adult, but I'm still not adding anything of my own. You can certainly ask a question, but I would mirror a couple times first. Okay, I had a massage therapist in my workshop, and she said, you know, it's kind of like when you do a massage, you go over the spot more than once. So I think if you've been hearing me, I've been, you know, making more than one pass. And when you're learning this, and you're in your head, sometimes a kid will say, what are you doing? Why are you doing that to me? Okay. And so I'll tell them, I'll say, you know, I'm really, really trying to get what you're telling me. Because that matters to me. And that seems to shift things. Okay. Yes?
With that hearing about the bench story,
Mm-hmm.
doing that a couple of times, that increases the chances that the child will really see and fit what it was about, if they would. And do some reflection about the whole thing, rather than what was it for. Mirroring, I think, encourages more energy.
That's a good point. I think it does too. And what happens then is it's kind of like this. So I'm upset, and sometimes it gets bigger before it gets smaller. Okay. Yeah, it was really unfair. Wow, really unfair, huh? You sound mad now. I am. Okay. And it opens up the dialogue. And then when we get to the differentiation piece, we can talk about how to participate. Okay. Notice the whole first part, and if this were an all-day workshop, the whole first part of the morning is just about the adults. It's not even about the kids, okay? It's about, again, self-empathy. So then you're more willing to empathize with the kids. You don't feel so much like it's them against you. You know what those things feel like, and same thing with the mirroring. Someone had a question? Yes?
Are you responding with a flat affect, or how?
I wouldn't be flat. If they were flat, I wouldn't go under that, because then it would be empty. Right? Okay.
But you would match it?
I would probably I wouldn't get, if they're telling me something exciting, I wouldn't go, wow, that's so great, because it would be over, right? So if they said something like, yeah, you know, I asked Susie out, and she said yes, and, you know, that's really great, I think I would just try to match it, not go really under, because I could feel that maybe there was some embarrassment there. And so I would just notice that. And they would say, so you asked her out. Pretty excited about it? It would be more like that kind of tone. This takes a lot of practice. So in workshops, I have people practice. Okay, and then tell each other when they're in dyads if they felt understood or not. And that's a really good way of learning this. Okay. Yes?
So how would the mirroring work when you're interacting with the child and they're perceiving you as the source of the problem? Like, 'cause the examples were more they're disclosing something else is happening, but when they're very upset, they're upset with you, how does the mirroring look?
You know, maybe I'll tell you a vignette about me and my son. It's narcissistic mirroring. And that may not totally answer your question. I'm willing to answer more. But he was 18 and he was going off to college. And he was getting a checkup and I was hanging out with him. So he walked out of the doctor's consultation room and he was like shaky and pale. And he went, "Mommy!" And he had not called me mommy for 10 years. Okay. And I said, "Honey, what?" And he said, "Oh, I had to get a shot and then I had to get another shot and, you know, like, oh, and I didn't know and then they took my blood and when they took my blood, like, I had this really weird feeling in my body and I went, "Really? You had that I have that feeling too, you know, I get that same feeling." And he went, "Mommy, mirror me." And so I took a breath and I backed up and I said, "So it was really nerve-wracking, huh?" "Yeah." "And you really didn't like how it felt?" "No." He needed me. So let's talk about what mirroring does. Mirroring is a regulating skill. Okay? It helps a kid regulate their feelings. You know, earlier when I was talking about grounding, you can't get a kid to regulate your feelings, you know, because you have the more mature brain. The more mature brain regulates the less mature brain, otherwise it's a reversal and you have kids taking care of parents. Okay? But there's two kinds of regulation. One is self-regulation, that's the grounding techniques, those are self-regulating techniques. And there's interactive regulation. We need both. Mirroring is also interactive regulation. The other thing is mirroring contains feelings. If I'm really mad or I'm really sad and my mom or dad can stay present and mirror me, they can hold my feelings and then I can hold my feelings. And that, you know, when they were talking yesterday about the zone of tolerance, you know, that window can be narrow. And when you mirror, it can help expand the window. Because I can tolerate more intensity, because my parent can tolerate more intensity. And that expands that window of intense affects that I can stay regulated with intense affects. You know, anger is not a bad thing. It's just so often that we can't contain it and we move into being physical with it. And when, you know, all the conflict resolution stuff is about being able to talk about what happened, what's going on, all of that good stuff. So did that answer your question? About what happens if it's about the parent? Not exactly. So if a kid's mad at me, I want to mirror them, and that's the beginning. The differentiation part then. So let's say a kid is angry with me, and they say, "You're stupid." And I go, "Wow, you sound really mad. You're really mad at me." "Yeah, I am." Okay, that's the first part. Now, in the differentiation part, they have their own feelings. If you look at your outline, you know, kids have their own feelings. We have our own feelings. So now I want to sort out that piece. And I might say, "So, you're really mad at me. Now I can ask a question. I'm wondering how come?" "I don't want to go to bed. I hate going to bed." Okay. Mirroring is not agreement. I can feel differently than my child. You know, they can feel like going to bed sucks and it's hateful, and I can think, you know, it's really important for me to help this kid go to bed. In fact, when my son was 7, we had a next door neighbor the boy was 7, they were in the same class, and he lived with a single dad, and he said, "Mom, can I tell you something?" I said, "Sure, honey, what?" And he said, "Promise you'll never remind me?" I said, "Okay." He said, "Mom, I'm so glad you put me to bed, and you know, I'm so glad because, you know, Chris, he's staying up and watching Letterman and he's falling asleep at school and he can't learn his fractions." But he didn't want me, when I went to put him to bed the next night, to say, "Remember, you said you liked it." He wanted me to stick with him time by time by time, because that was regulating. Okay. So maybe the anger is, you promised me you were gonna take me to so-and-so. And I think about it and I go, wow, you're right, I did promise that. No wonder you're so mad. I'm glad you told me, and I'm really sorry, and let's make a plan to do it another time. So there's the repair. We talk about rupture and repair. Ruptures happen all the time. How do I repair them? What do I need to know about what's gone on that even needs repair? I want to make it safe for my kid to talk to me. By the time you have teenagers, if they don't feel safe enough to talk to you, then you don't have much. You don't have a relationship, you don't have much. Okay? And the other thing is, I want my kids to be able to set boundaries with me, because if they can't set them with me, how is my 15-year-old girl going to set a boundary with her boyfriend if she isn't safe doing it with me and having that practice? Okay. So let's see if there's anything else about mirroring. I guess I'll do discounting. I didn't do discounting. Does someone else want to be a kid? Yes. Question?
Question, just in terms of when there's trauma, does this kind of change things? Because they often don't want to go to their emotions?
I think that it certainly can, but if you are gentle and you're paying attention to the space, like when you were doing that vignette with me, she wasn't more forthcoming. She acknowledged what happened. She got that I got her, but she didn't feel like opening up. And so I didn't push it. I respected that. And so I think it's a question of being tuned into the physiology, being willing to back up, being willing not to invade, because again, what mirroring does, it's like a fulcrum. It moves you between bonding and differentiation. So if I mirror you, I see you. You're you and I'm me. It makes us closer, but it also makes us different. And different in a system. Yes?
I have an example for you because I just dealt with this.
Okay.
I'm just going to tell you how it came to me. I'm really angry that I was not line leader today.
Pretty mad? You weren't line leader?
Yes.
Yeah. Didn't feel very good.
No, Johnny said I was not supposed to be there.
Okay, so watch what happened. She told me more. I didn't ask her a question. I made space. She told me more. I'm going to mirror a little more, and then I might ask her a question. Okay. Like, here's an example. I'll give you an example of discounting. Susie comes home from school, and she says, nobody likes me. Oh my God, my baby's in distress. Okay. Now, I can't warm her, feed her, but I can pay attention to the fact that she's in distress. I had that signal. So what do? Okay. I say, oh, you sound sad. You sound really sad. I am. Susie's my best friend and she didn't sit next to me today. And I go, oh, yeah, that hurt your feelings? And she said, uh-huh. Now, if I had started out by saying, of course, everybody likes you. Of course. She wouldn't see herself in that mirror, right? Okay. But now I can say, you know what, honey, I like you. Would you like to sit in my lap? Uh-huh. And now I can comfort her. Okay. So, hang on. I just want to get to the third piece really quick, and then if there's time for questions, then I'll take some more. So the third piece is the differentiation piece. Remember that your kid is different from you with different thoughts and feelings. Okay, so remember in the morning, or not in the morning here, but when we did the walking toward exercise, that line's invisible. People don't know when they've crossed that line. So I do an exercise in the afternoon where I take yarn and I make circles, have people make circles around themselves with a partner, look in their partner's eyes, and see how it feels to have a circle, see if they want to adjust it, and then I break them into, have A and B, and have one person put a part of their body in their partner's circle, and then ask the person what they would like to do about it. So let's say if what they want to do about it is take the feet and put them out, I have them do it so they get the feeling of doing it. And then I say, okay, now put a sign on your circle. What would it say? And they say, oh, it would say something like, knock before you come in. Okay, so that's a really good way to begin to translate that nonverbal experience into an articulated experience where I can know, and actually kids like to know where the parents' boundaries are. Okay, notice I'm not making rules. I'm not saying what you should or shouldn't feel, what you should or shouldn't do. This is a way of being in a relationship. So I'm either in a tender spot and hyper-aroused or hypo-aroused. I can ground myself, and then I can see where I am in terms of connection and bonding, in terms of giving a kid the feeling that they're seen, noticed, heard, and taken seriously, having their feelings taken seriously. Okay. Or I can look at where the boundaries are, and if there's a boundary collision. And I guess the last thing I would say is that it's really, really important when you set the boundary to mirror the response. And that takes you out of a power struggle. Okay, like I don't want to go to bed. Yeah, you really don't, huh? Feels really crummy. Yeah, don't want to go to bed right now. I get it. And you know what? It's bedtime. Oh, darn, I don't want to. I know, you really don't want to. You really don't like this. It diffuses a power struggle. And it's not, you will, I won't, you will, I won't, you will, I won't. Okay. So, I guess do I have time for one more vignette? Okay, so the last vignette would be, I taught this workshop in Switzerland, and the man was Swiss and his wife was Mexican. And her mother was there too, and they're very different temperamentally. And so every time the baby cried, he, either the mom or the mother-in-law would grab the baby out of his arms to calm the baby down. Remember? My baby, my baby. And he was really mad. He wanted a chance to calm the baby down. So I said, okay, there you are. I sat in a chair and I said, okay, let's watch this. Here comes your mother-in-law. And I think it was a Kleenex box, and I moved it toward him. He looked in horror. He saw this thing coming, and he kicked it across the room. And his wife said, that's just what he does. That's just what he does. Okay. So then I said, okay, let's do this a little differently. And I had him put the yarn there. And I brought the Kleenex box right up to the edge. And I said, how does that feel? He went, oh, God, so much better. I said, okay, remember, your mother-in-law does not know where that line is. What if you put a sign on your circle? And he said, oh, will you give me a chance to calm the baby? And I said, what do you think she would say? And he said, I think she'd say okay. And then his wife said, and I know what I'd do. I'd draw my circle, I'd feel my feet, and breathe. Because she knew she had to calm herself down to not reach for the baby. And so I thought that was a really nice piece. So, okay. So I don't know if I have any time for questions. 2 minutes? Any more questions? Yes.
So I have a 4-year-old, and she wants to tell me about her feelings. She tells me so feisty. She's like, I don't like that you did it, and I'm mad, don't do it again. So how would I mirror that?
You really feel that. I mean, I would have my affect match hers, and then I would probably watch her. Maybe she'd get bigger for a minute, and then she'd start to come down. And then I'd mirror her again at that lower level. Yes?
So my question is, what is the impact of your childhood experience? You spoke about it at the very beginning. I missed it.
Okay. The part with your own childhood experience is it becomes a tender spot. So if I have a kid who goes, maybe they're 4 and they go, I hate you, you're stupid, and I feel like I got attacked by a parent, then I'm going to respond. Only now I'm not inhibited because this person's little. The person I was dealing with was big. So I'm going to say, don't you dare talk to me that way. How dare you disrespect me if I'm in the grips of a tender spot. Yes.
So the thing you said that was most impactful for me
Yes.
was when you said that it's something you do from your heart.
Yes.
Because I when I first learned about doing this, I used to say like I have good empathy gone bad, and everyone hated when I gave them empathy. And it's still something I work on because actually I wasn't calm and I wasn't regulated, but I knew not to yell. So instead I would say, you know, I would be trying to calm them down. I'd be trying to use it as a regulatory skill because I was freaked out by whoever it was that was having big feelings.
Right.
So my mirroring felt really awful for a lot of people. So I just like kind of I would love for you to address that because I think it's a really common thing that happens when people are trying this out.
Thank you for sharing that. You know, I think what you have to do, and this is why, you know, both your body voice and your awareness need to come together. So if you notice that you're like really worked up and you're trying to mirror, you have to self-regulate first, okay? And sometimes that means with a kid saying, you know what, I need a moment to think about this. And you take a moment to regulate yourself before you come back into it. Anybody else? Okay, well, thank you very much.